This is one I've been wanting to get back to for a while. A chance to tell a new story, one where I get control of an OC. For those who don't know, an OC is an original character. In the last chapter, we got to flesh out some of Ethan's personality, but as of yet, much of his abilities and their fullest extent have remained hidden. So maybe we might get to see a bit more action from him today. That's what I'm aiming for, at least. I would do a bit more of an opening, but I'm getting so excited that I can hardly contain myself, so why don't we just go on ahead and get into the story now? But before we do, welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, only 25% of our viewers are subscribed, so if you're a fan of the video, please like and double check if you are subscribed. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. I walked out of the academy and down the streets with my team. It was a good feeling to finally be closing in on my dreams. To my left was Naruto, to my right was Sakura, and off to the side was Sasuke. Ahead of me was Kakashi-sensei. Everything was perfect. My anticipation was high. What would he be having us do? What would our first mission be? What would be our first lesson? Normally, I wasn't an overly excitable person, but right now I felt like a rocket or a firework, ready to shoot into the sky and explode. He led us to an area away from the main village, a forested area. There, Kakashi stopped and turned around. He explained something to us. As you know, there's one too many of you on this team. Instead of 3, I have 4. That's not gonna fly, he said to our shock. I had thought that the Hokage had personally guaranteed that I could be on a 4-man team, but Kakashi made it sound like such a thing was impossible. As if reading my mind, Kakashi spoke. I don't care what the Hokage said. In the end, I am the Jonin in charge, and my decisions are what matters. He will oblige me. Kakashi then turned to look at us all. I'm only taking 3 students, max. That being said, I only want the best of the best. I'm sure that most of you know of my reputation at this point. I'm one of Konoha's most elite shinobi, and I want to only rear up students with the potential to be the same. That being said, I will choose who becomes my students based on this test. He lifted up 3 bells tied together. These bells are your target. By the end of the day, each of you must have one. The genin who doesn't possess a bell by 6 p.m. will be sent back to the academy, stripped of their rank. Am I clear? Sakura raised her hand. What if less than 3 get bells? Do we get another chance? Kakashi shook his head. You each get a bell or you're off the team. I can fill spots if only 1 or 2 are worthy. And if none of us are worthy, Sasuke asked, then you all go back to the academy. I'll try again next year. The cold and direct statement sent shivers down my spine. This was about to be a free-for-all fight for survival. I looked around at the others. As much as I cared about them, I had to prioritize my own future. I needed to at least get 1 bell. Kakashi took out his book and began reading through it. You may begin when you desire. I was surprised by his decision to read while we attempted to attack him. Was this his way of telling us that he didn't even need to take us seriously? Was this just some plot to agitate us? Naruto ran forward with an angry battle cry, declaring that he could and would not allow Kakashi to underestimate him. If it was designed to anger us, it seemed to be an effective strategy, at least on Naruto. Naruto would then proceed to be subjected to the most humiliating technique imaginable. Indeed, this was designed to rile us up, to make us angry. Anger begat mistakes. I was attempting to read as deeply into strategies as I possibly could. I was already trying to learn. But furthermore, I came to realize how deplorable that 1,000 years of death jutsu was. There were just some things you didn't do, and Kakashi had crossed one of those lines. It led me to think about what it took to be a shinobi. Would I too need to throw away my own morality just to win? Sasuke was the second one in. He rushed through with quite the speed and fury. His taijutsu skills were everything I thought they would be, and it was quite a spectacle. I was certain that if any of us had a chance to get a bell, it had to be Sasuke. There was more than one occasion where Sasuke forced Kakashi to look up from his book to avoid an attack, specifically when he utilized the fire release fireball technique. The moment he did that, Kakashi's book was closed, if only for a moment. Such a technique was taxing, especially on a younger person. It was nowhere near as taxing as a lightning release technique, but still, the size which he used the technique at really surprised me. In the end, Sasuke was not capable of hurting Kakashi, nor taking any of the bells. I was the next to go. I cautiously approached and pulled a pair of kunai from my holster and threw them. Kakashi jumped back with great strength and speed. Come on, Ethan, do you really want to dishonor me like that? He said. I was confused. What do you mean? Kakashi started to continue, but before he could even finish his first word, another group of kunai, this time from Sasuke, buried themselves in the side of Kakashi's head, causing him to fall over. I was startled. "Sasuke, what did you do?" I shouted, panicking. "You just killed our mentor." "No, he didn't." Another familiar voice came from the trees. Suddenly, the body turned into a log. I looked up and saw Kakashi. "Sasuke did what I hope you all would do. Take me seriously enough to try and kill me, because that's the only way you can succeed. You gotta try and kill me." "But you're not taking us seriously," Naruto said. "Who said I had to?" Kakashi said. "You're the genin and I'm the master. I don't need to take you seriously because I'm elite. You need to take me seriously because you're all crap ninja. It's the way of the world. Might is right. How strong you are as an individual dictates how far you'll go. Now, let's take this fight elsewhere. I'd like to begin retaliating." Kakashi jumped off into the forest. We began to follow him. We all went our own separate ways to search. I, however, could hardly cover my smile. I knew exactly where Kakashi-sensei was. He was still wearing his crystal Magatama, the same Magatama that had my chakra in it. I could sense where it was, and so I began to make my way toward it. Coming to a stop, I saw Kakashi propped up against a tree. I decided to sneak behind him and take a bell subtly. Coming up as quietly as possible, I reached around for the bells. Suddenly, I felt a jerking motion as all of my organs shifted. My foot was yanked up as a rope got a hold of my leg. I was pulled up into the air. Dizziness and a desire to puke began to set in as my equilibrium was completely out of whack. I looked up, or down, at Kakashi, who explained that shinobi use more than their eyes. He commended me on using my chakra, however, to track him, saying that it was a clever trick and meant I was already getting the hang of what it took to be a shinobi. "However," Kakashi said, "you still need to learn to use all of your senses at once, including your chakra. If you had, you would have spotted that obvious trap I had set. Then maybe you would have gotten the bells." He then ran off, leaving me there. I wasn't feeling good. The blood was rushing to my head, and I felt as I might just pass out, because the next thing I knew, Sakura appeared and cut me down. Falling on my face, I moaned a bit before rising to my feet. "Thanks, Sakura." Together, she and I would continue on. It seemed that both Naruto and Sasuke had also fallen victim to Kakashi's trickery, with Naruto being tied up as I was and Sasuke having been buried alive. Sakura herself admitted that she'd been cast under genjutsu, where she'd seen something that she wasn't comfortable repeating. However, upon seeing Sasuke buried up to his neck, she screamed out that he'd been decapitated and passed out once more. I would walk over. "You sure do seem to be ahead of the pack, Sasuke," I said with a chuckle. "Die," he spat in my direction. Wiping the tears of laughter from my eyes, I used one of my primary nature transformations, Earth Release, to raise Sasuke from the ground. "Seems you've been practicing," Sasuke said. "My crystal release is part Earth Release, part water release. Due to that, I study the use of both. I'm not like a master with it, but due to it being my particular Kekai Genkai, I do have experience." I pulled him up. At about that time, Naruto was catching up. He seemed to be a little down in the dumps. "I don't think we're gonna be able to do it, guys," he said. I looked around. Even Sasuke couldn't do it. He was completely humiliated. I thought about it quite a bit. "We do have an option." "What is it?" Naruto asked. I looked up. We each have awesome abilities. Sasuke has incredible taijutsu, speed, and ferocity. Sakura has grace, control, and the ability to get herself and likely others out of genjutsu. I have some precision and control over certain ninjutsu, and Naruto is boisterous and loud, making for a good distraction. We can't do this if we go at it alone, but if we work together, maybe we can get those bells. "But how would we do this?" Sasuke asked. "If we work together knowing one of us won't make it, how can we keep from screwing it up?" I began to think about it. "I wasn't supposed to be here," I said. "This was supposed to be your team, not mine. I'm the odd man out, and it's because of me that we have to do this at all. I'll volunteer to leave." As I said that, I was halfway on the verge of crying. I didn't want this, but I knew that the only way we could do this was through teamwork, and the only way the team could work was if there was a designated sacrifice. Weighing the options, my conscience told me that it had to be me. I couldn't force 3 others to lose their dreams with me. I had to sacrifice. As hard as it was, that was my decision. The team was silent for a moment. "If Ethan's gonna be the sacrifice, then I want him to lead us," Naruto said. "Ethan came up with the plan he should execute," Sasuke said. "I agree," Sakura said. They looked at me. "What should we do?" Having used the black agate stone to locate Kakashi again, which I knew he left on, likely to lure me into another trap, we began to set ourselves up. Naruto was to cause the distraction, and Sakura was to remain close to me should either of us get cast under genjutsu. Sasuke would be our spearhead, rushing in with his great strength, and I was to utilize my crystal release in an attempt to immobilize Kakashi. When we were all in place, we began to communicate via hand signals. When we felt that the time was right, Naruto began his distraction. He would show up in front of Kakashi and start waffling, basically. Kakashi would look up at Naruto and offer a bit of a smile and shake his head. He kept an eye on him the whole time while Naruto continued to make a scene. As this was happening, I began to utilize my crystal release to start covering Kakashi's feet in crystals, holding him in place. He didn't notice it yet, not to my knowledge. Once his feet were properly covered, I gave Sasuke the signal and Sasuke rushed out for the bells. Kakashi saw this and attempted to create distance to protect the bells, but upon doing so he realized that his feet were caught, causing him to trip. Sasuke would keep rushing forward and would take the bells when Kakashi was unable to protect himself. We all celebrated in victory, knowing that we managed to take the bells and work together properly. Kakashi stood and began to clap his hands. Congratulations, team, you managed to take the bells. But now we have a big question to ask. Who here is going home? We all looked to each other. This was what we had tried not to think about during the mission. Kakashi spoke. You know this needs to be done. Which of you will it be? He asked. That was when I raised my hand. Kakashi looked over. Ethan, you're volunteering. I nodded. I wasn't supposed to be on this team, I said. Konoha made a mistake, but that doesn't reflect on these guys. Kakashi-sensei, it's because of me and me alone that this team is experiencing this whole situation, and I can't allow my team in good conscience to lose their dreams just to fulfill my own. Kakashi nodded. Fair. If that's how it is, then you're excused. It was everything I could do to keep myself from breaking down into tears. I began to walk off. As I did so, I heard a rather boisterous voice speak out from behind me. This is total bull, the voice said. Ethan's a great shinobi and he shouldn't be forced to go home. It's not his fault that Konoha forgot to put him on a team. You shouldn't send him home, Kakashi-sensei. I looked back to see Naruto speaking. The only reason I'm a genin right now is because of him, and I can't let you take that away. Kakashi sat there silently for a moment. I'm sorry, Naruto, but I can't take on more than 3. I just don't have the RAM for it. Naruto began to puff out his chest. If you don't have room for Ethan, then you don't have room for me. How does that help your RAM? Naruto began to walk away after me. Naruto, what did you do? I asked. You didn't have to do that. Now you're gonna get in trouble. Naruto shook his head. I'd be in worse trouble now if it weren't for you. I'm with you till the end of the line. He offered his fist for a bump. I felt my tears welling up at the bottom of my lids. I bumped his fist. Unbeknownst to me, Sakura and Sasuke were also overcome with their own hard decisions. In their own hearts, they felt as if they were unable to do this. Naruto and Ethan both gone. Naruto sacrificing his spot just to be with me, they were filled with conviction. Sakura shook her head. I can't do it. I gotta protest this. She stood and walked over to me and Naruto. I'm staying with you guys. Kakashi sighed and looked at Sasuke. Will you go too? He asked. Sasuke was silent for a moment. He then stood and began to walk over to the rest of us. I will. I'm staying with these 3, he said. At this time, my eyes really were overflowing with tears. Guys, I couldn't express what I wanted to say. My emotions were overwhelmed, but they were with me. They chose me over the team. How blessed I was. These were my true friends. Despite their uncomfortability, I hugged them and they hugged me back. It was at this moment that Kakashi stood and began to clap. Bravo, bravo. We were confused by this. What? I asked as we looked on. Kakashi walked closer. This is the perfect team, he said. You're all exactly what I think a team should be. The way that you stick together in the face of doom. Perfect. He then spoke up. I will take you all on. What about your RAM? Naruto asked. Kakashi smiled. I can handle 4. I just wanted to make sure your conviction was strong enough, he said. Welcome to Team Kakashi. We all then went out to celebrate once again. No longer as just friends, but now as comrades, brothers and sisters in arms. That being said, our missions weren't exactly the coolest after that. We weren't even leaving the village, let alone doing anything dangerous. I likened it more to public service. We weren't even really fighting crime in Konoha, just picking up trash. But I knew everyone had to start somewhere, and that Kakashi's decisions were the best ones that could be made. I decided to trust his judgment, but someone else on our team didn't, and he made sure to let the Hokage know about it too, despite my chagrin. Naruto complained to the Hokage about our missions and about how boring they were. He practically demanded a better mission despite our protests to make him be more respectful. The Hokage, however, didn't grow angry or red in the face as we expected. No, he smiled. All right then, Naruto. If you think your team can handle a better mission, I'll give you this one. This is a high-ranking genin mission that takes place outside of the village. It's an escort mission. Your mission will be to escort the architect Tazuna back to his village, safeguarding him from the threat of bandits. Naruto rolled his head back as he breathed out the word finally, taking the scroll. He brought it back to the team. Kakashi took it and read it. "Are you guys sure you're ready for the mission?" Naruto nodded his head, and I had no other choice but to agree. After all, we had all the basics down and were capable of handling ourselves. While we might have been weak shinobi, we had training that gave us the edge over your ordinary bandits. "Yeah, I think we are." Sasuke didn't even feel he needed to be asked. He was so confident in his own abilities that he didn't need to answer. Sakura was the most skeptical of us all, but she too agreed for the main reason that Sasuke did. So we all went home to prepare for our mission. I grabbed only what I thought I would need, that being an extra set of clothes, as well as some food, water, and various other shinobi gear and supplies. The day after, we all met together once again, where we proceeded to leave. I would slip a magatama into Tezuna's pocket when nobody was looking, just to make sure that I had a tracker on him just in case. One could never be too careful. As we walked though, I must admit I didn't pay much attention. That was a mistake, because when the Demon Brothers appeared, we were blindsided. They descended upon us within a moment's notice. Out of fear, Naruto froze. I was also moving on fear, but my reaction was slightly different. My reaction was to attack. It was reckless and everywhere, a sudden creation of crystals that I sent flying off like a shotgun blast toward the Demon Bros. They dodged it, of course, but my attack had also struck Naruto, putting him on his knees. "Naruto, are you alright?" Naruto couldn't speak. I saw blood though. "Oh no, I hurt you." Sasuke would be the only one in control of his own faculties. He would spring into action, attacking the Demon Bros all by himself. Alone, without any help, he managed to put them away. I, on the other hand, was tending to Naruto, pulling out the crystals that had struck him in the back. "We need first aid over here," I said. Thankfully, he didn't seem to have been struck by many of them, but the ones he had been struck by had gone through some of the deeper layers of his skin, causing bleeding. Kakashi began to mend his wounds as I stood off to the side, feeling more and more guilty about what I had done. Thankfully, Naruto's wounds were easily mended, but it was then that Kakashi began considering turning around, and I thought for sure that he would. After all, what we had faced were two known shinobi in the bingo book. They were well-known mercenaries, rogue shinobi from the village hidden in the mist, but when Kakashi stated that we would turn around, Naruto shouted no. He told them that he refused to turn back now and he was going to push forward. Kakashi tried to get Naruto to see reason. "You've been wounded. You froze, and Ethan panicked. If we face more assassins like this, someone could get hurt, or worse." Naruto shook his head. "No, it's not Ethan's fault. I was in the way. He had to react. If he hadn't done what he had, I'd be dead now. It's my fault for being in the same place. I froze. That's on me, but I swear on this blood that I've lost that I'll never freeze again." Sasuke seconded this. "I didn't freeze. In fact, I fought against and defeated these Demon Brothers. I can handle myself, and wherever these two clowns fail, I'll pick up the slack." I hated being called a clown, but to a point I agreed with him. I felt like a clown for failing to properly defend Naruto. It was embarrassing, but thankfully Sasuke was there to help. Kakashi eventually relented and we decided to continue. And as we did, we once again would be stopped by another assassin. But this assassin was something beyond just the Demon Brothers. It was a former member of the 7 Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist, Zabuza. I looked back at Tezuna and spoke. "What the heck did you do to deserve someone sending a former member of the Ninja Swordsmen after you?" He refused to elaborate. Kakashi stepped forward and began to duel with Zabuza. The two of them fought, with Kakashi displaying his Sharingan here for the first time. I'd heard about it, but I'd never seen it myself. I had assumed that only the Uchiha could attain such a dojutsu. Could Kakashi have had distant Uchiha blood? Either way, he lost this battle. Caught in a water prison, we watched as our mentor slowly suffocated. What could we do? Zabuza would kill Kakashi and then kill us unless we handed over Tezuna. And if we handed over Tezuna, he would kill him too. We couldn't abandon our mission, and we couldn't abandon our mentor either. We only had one choice, and we all knew it. That choice was to fight. But how? This guy was stronger than our mentor, who we could hardly beat ourselves. What could we do? I looked at Naruto and Sasuke. Together we began to come up with a plan on our own. We knew that we didn't have the physical skill with which to defeat Zabuza, so we would need to win through the same guile we used to defeat Kakashi. That would require a distraction. Perhaps a distraction to distract from another distraction. Layering on distractions would further hide the truth of our attack. In essence, all we really needed to do was get Zabuza to move his hand from the water sphere. If we did that, the jutsu would dissipate and Kakashi-sensei would be freed. But how exactly would we do that? How could my crystals help? That was the question. Naruto had the idea of using the transformation jutsu and the shadow clone jutsu. As for me, I couldn't exactly lock down Zabuza like we had with Kakashi, as the point would be to make Zabuza escape the attack, not block it. As I thought about it, I felt like the best I could do is not overly insert myself into the plan, but to support it however I could. So I began throwing kunai at Zabuza to keep him distracted. Then Sasuke threw a Demon Wind Shuriken at Zabuza, which he barely dodged. I keep up the assault, flinging everything but the kitchen sink at the dude. It's then that Naruto reveals that he was the Demon Wind Shuriken all along and flings kunai back at him. Zabuza gets out of the way, but in doing so, he accidentally lets go of Kakashi's water prison. Kakashi was free, exiting the water with a gasp of air and a cough. He began to rise. Zabuza then knew for certain that he couldn't win. It was then that a mysterious new shinobi appeared and killed Zabuza. I watched as he went down and was put on guard by this new shinobi with an odd mask that looked similar to that of an Anbu. I was ready to attack, but it was then that Kakashi put his hand on my shoulder. "Easy," he said. "This guy is not a danger to you. He's just a hunter nin. He's here to collect Zabuza. So long as we stay out of his way, he won't attack us." It was then that the hunter nin lifted Zabuza up and began to flee with him. Oh. Huh. I looked back. "What is it, Kakashi-sensei?" I asked. Kakashi shook his head. "It's nothing. Don't worry about it." At this time, fatigue began to overtake Kakashi. "We need to find a place to rest for the night," he said. Tazuna looked around. "We're not too far from my home. We can go there for the night," he said. So we began to make our way toward Tazuna's home for the night, where we would rest. While there, I was able to get a bit more information on what was going on, including the personal lives of Tazuna himself, his daughter, and his grandson. A sad story unfolded before me of a man who was so generous that he didn't even keep his own life from his people. I was inspired by it. But the story continued and revealed that the man had been murdered, his life stolen by the crime lord that now held the village in his clutches. I grit my teeth as the boy who this man loved stormed off, delivering an exposition on how shinobi were stupid and how there was no such thing as a real hero. Naruto took offense, and he stood, seeming like he might clobber the poor boy, but keeping in mind this child's mental and emotional state, my compassionate side began to overflow. Gripping Naruto's collar, I pulled him back to his seat and spoke. "Don't let it get to you, Naruto. He's been through a lot." "We've all been through a lot," Naruto said. "Doesn't give him the right to be a jerk." "No, it doesn't," I told Naruto. "It doesn't give him the right to be a jerk, but it does give him an excuse. So try to look past it and understand why he's saying these things. Look at his face again and tell me what you see." Naruto looked at the face he'd previously seen as confrontational and finally spotted the tears sitting in the corner of the boy's eyes. He looked back at me for a moment before looking to the boy. I let Naruto go, straightening out his collar before pulling away. The boy ran from us, up the stairs towards his room. I stood from the table and looked at Tazuna and Tsunami. I offered a slight bow. "Thank you for the meal. Can I have your permission to speak with your son? I want to try to comfort him." Tazuna and Tsunami looked at each other, with the Nari's mother nodding, giving me the freedom to do as I needed. I thanked them and began to slowly make my way up the stairs. Coming to the edge of the room, I heard the gentle crying of a boy inside, and my heart was starting to break. I knock on the door. "Go away," is all I hear within. "Please, let me come in," I say. "Leave me alone," the voice shouted. Despite the protests, as rude as it might have been, I entered the room. Knowing he could do nothing to stop me, he elected to ignore me. Coming to the side of the bed, I sat down, facing away from Inari, sitting back to back. I did this to offer him some privacy, just in case he couldn't hide his tears. In the end, I knew that as a guy, he would see his tears as weakness, but that wasn't so. It took a lot of strength to cry, especially in front of others. They weren't a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength. "Inari, can we talk about it?" "There's nothing to talk about. He's dead. He's gone. He's never coming back." I shake my head. "I mean, about you." "What's there to talk about? That I'm sad and lonely? That the only person I could look up to is gone? I don't need your pity. I don't need your psychiatry." I shake my head. "Inari, it has nothing to do with that. You're in pain, and I don't want you to be." "Sometimes there's nothing you can do. I wish my dad had learned that. Maybe if he wasn't always trying to be a hero, he'd still be here with me." I turn around eventually. I crawl across the bed and sit next to him. "Inari, I know you're sad. You're scared, lonely. I am too." Inari was silent. He didn't even dare answer. He knew that if he did, he'd lose his cool. "Inari, I don't have anyone at home waiting for me." Inari looked up. "What happened to them?" I shook my head. "I don't know where they are or why they're gone. They just are. For as long as I can remember, I've lived alone, by myself. I know how hard that is." I continued to explain to him my own life story. Slowly, he began asking questions, asking why I became a shinobi in the first place. He wanted to know if I became a shinobi because I felt I needed a family, and honestly, I wasn't sure what to say. Perhaps that really was the reason I became a shinobi, but another thing he asked me was why I'd be willing to throw my life away for someone else, and the only answer I could give him was love. Love of others, love of the greater good of the village. He seemed to understand, but he couldn't completely accept it. I told him that it was okay to be sad, but that we shouldn't let it change our perspective on things. I reminded him that Kaiza had done what he had out of love, because he loved Inari. I would then leave Inari alone. I wanted to fix the situation, and going into it, I thought I could. But as the conversation continued, I felt as if I was making no progress. There were some wounds that only time could heal. I just wanted Inari to know that it eventually would heal. We further continued our training while Kakashi rested. We tried running up the sides of trees. I was able to pick it up fairly easily. Not as early as Sakura, but early as Naruto and Sasuke due to my need to control my chakra while creating crystals. It was a very deep process creating crystals and making sure everything bonded in a perfect repeating pattern, and that required chakra control. Doing it with my feet was harder though. But given that I had a leg up on the competition, I would manage to climb those trees more quickly than the other two. Despite that, I waited for them. Sasuke was next after me, with Naruto training well into the night. I ended up falling asleep by a tree as he kept trying. The next morning, I woke up to see another there, a boy in a cherry blossom kimono. Well, I only figured out that it was a boy later on. Needless to say, Naruto and I were both surprised, but he seemed kind. Despite this, I felt as though I recognized him from somewhere, and I wasn't exactly sure from where. I would ask Naruto about this, and he would say that he'd never seen him before in his life. After this, Naruto kept training, working himself half to death. So much so that when Kakashi was finally able to get out of bed, Naruto wasn't. So we elected to go without him to the bridge to protect the workers. For the most part, nothing was unusual. That was until Zabuza appeared again. I was confused. How could he have survived, I wondered. It was then that the Hunter Nin appeared beside him. I then realized that Zabuza had never been killed, and the Hunter Nin had helped him fake his demise to escape. Kakashi once again approached Zabuza, ready for a rematch. I, on the other hand, was with Sasuke, ready to face the masked boy. As the battles began, Sasuke and I quickly found ourselves trapped among the ice mirrors. I was confused. That being said, I seemed to be the perfect counter after all, as ice was a crystalline structure as well. The only difference was that instead of using wind release, I used earth release. I was able to mostly protect Sasuke from the masked boy's attacks, but in return, we couldn't attack back. It had taken everything I had to create the crystal release Crimson Fruit. We seemed to be at a perfect standoff. Sasuke was enraged that he couldn't do anything. I promised that the moment we could escape, I would cancel the jutsu, but as it stood, the masked boy didn't seem to be going anywhere. That was until Kakashi finally got the better of Zabuza. The masked boy would then disengage from us. I would cancel the technique, but as we went to face the masked boy, we found him sitting on the edge of Kakashi's Chidori. As Zabuza planned to cleave the two in half, I cried out, creating a crystal spire before Kakashi, impaling the body of the masked boy before also impaling Zabuza. Zabuza would drop his blade to the ground. It was at this time that Naruto showed up, as did Gato and his men. However, as Kakashi utilized the clone jutsu, he managed to scare off Gato's thugs. I, on the other hand, approached the masked boy and removed his mask. Naruto and I were both startled. Sasuke asked us what was going on, and I simply responded, "This boy appeared to us earlier today. He gave us words of encouragement." It was then that I realized just how truly dark the shinobi world was. Either this boy was planted there to destroy our confidence, or he was forced to do things he didn't want to do. Either way, it ended with this boy's demise. Something both Naruto and I lamented. Kakashi explained to us that being a shinobi, or a hero for that matter, sometimes meant making a sacrifice, and sometimes that sacrifice wasn't oneself. Sometimes the hardest sacrifice was to sacrifice someone else. I was definitely feeling that right now. In the end, the bridge was able to be completed, and it'd be named after the Jonin who ensured that it would be. It would be named the Scarecrow Bridge. With our mission complete, we decided to return to Konoha, where we were to inform Hiruzen of just how much the people of the Land of Waves could use our help. They were hoping that trade lines would be open between our two villages so they could defend themselves with our help. But as we traveled home, I couldn't help but think of Haku. Why had he come to us on that day? He could have killed us as we slept, but instead he seemed to intentionally wake us. Why? Perhaps he wanted to talk, wanted to see what our convictions were. Perhaps he wanted to make friends with us. Maybe he too was lonely. It was too late to ask him now though, but it didn't stop me from pondering him and his motivations. The more I thought on this though, the more the similarities between us began to stand out. I even thought about our jutsu. "You know, he used crystals too," I said to Sakura as we walked home. She looked at me questioningly. I looked over to her. I wonder, can I replicate some of his jutsu with my own? Imagine what I could do with that. What was the technique he used called? Sakura thought back. Sasuke then spoke up before her. The demonic mirroring ice crystals. I pointed to Sasuke. Yeah, that. I wonder if maybe I can do something similar. Keep thinking about it, Kakashi said. The way we grow isn't only dependent upon techniques we develop on our own, but upon finding and incorporating the best techniques of others. I live off that type of growth. It's why I'm called the Copy Ninja. I continued to think about this until we got back to Konoha. Once there, we were debriefed and allowed to leave. I told my side of the story, as did everyone else. Doing so helped Konoha paint a picture of the events that happened and form a file on it in case it grew too large, but all in all, it seemed to be an open and shut case. However, after this, we would begin to notice that others were filing into the village too. I began to ask around, wondering what was going on, with some of the villagers telling me that these were visitors from other hidden villages who were here for the Chunin exams. I grew excited upon hearing this. In my heart, I wanted to take the exams, but I knew it would be too early, so I begrudgingly let the thought fly by as if I never had it, satiating my disappointment by reminding myself that I could go and see the exams personally. That was when Kakashi met with us. He informed us that we could join the exams if we all agreed to. Looking to the rest of Team 7, I smiled. We had all decided to join the Chunin exams. And that's where I plan to stop for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Honestly, as I was going through the story, I began to note the similarities between Ice Release and Crystal Release. Going over the page for Crystal Release, I saw that mirrors were one of the things that were possible to create, so I'm hoping to develop some new techniques for the release that could help mimic the demonic mirroring ice crystals. I'm thinking about calling it Crystal Release, Demonic Mirroring Jade Crystals. What do you think about that one? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified when videos like this drop. And if you just can't wait for the next one, try these videos out. I bet you'll like them. Anyway, until next time, peace out.